The transfer portal's getting ready to open back up, and believe it or not, Penn State does not need a wide receiver.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State football, and thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show, the #1 Penn State sports podcast out there. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. I don't expect too many people to agree with this one, but wide receiver is not a need for Penn State. Frankly, linebacker isn't either. The only need that Penn State needs to address is defensive tackle. If you got a question you want me to answer, let me know down in the comments section for future podcasts as well. But why I say that wide receiver is not a need for Penn State, it's a want. You want superstar wide receivers. I don't blame anybody for wanting Penn State to have a superstar wide receiver, but it's the way that this team is built. This team is not built to rely on its wide receivers. It is going to be behind an elite offensive line, 2 elite college running backs, 2 NFL caliber running backs. Let's call it what it is. Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen would have been 2nd or 3rd round NFL draft picks this season. And instead they come back and they form the best backfield in college football. That's easy to say. Singleton and Allen form the best backfield in college football. So when you have a top 3 offensive line, the best backfield in college football, your wide receivers just need to be serviceable. They just need to do enough in this case. They went and got Kyron Hudson. They went and got Devontae Ross in the transfer portal. So to argue and say that, they got to go and get another wide receiver in the spring transfer portal window is not necessarily true. Again, the more the merrier. You can want other wide receivers, but I like what they have in Kyron Hudson. I really like what they have in Devontae Ross. I think Devontae Ross is going to provide an extreme difference with just his speed alone. It's Andy Kotelniki, it's Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, it's this offensive line, it's Luke Reynolds, it's Khalil Dinkins, Joey Schlaffer, Andrew Rapplier when he comes back. It's all of the other position groups. I haven't even mentioned Drew Allard yet. Wide receiver does not have to be this superstar group that takes over games. Penn State made it to the national semifinals without a wide receiver. So if they're top 4 with what they had a season ago, and I think this offense can actually be better with what they return. It's under the assumption that Drew Allard is going to get better, because he will. Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen are only going to get better. And then you add Kyron Hudson, who was just simply buried in a crowded USC wide receiver room. Kyron Hudson's a good wide receiver. He can block. He can make the tough catches. I think separation's a little bit of a question mark, but he's a good possession receiver. Now, what Devontae Ross will be able to do is use his speed to open up the ground game. So even if he doesn't get the pass, doesn't get targeted on a deep throw, it's the possibility that there could be a play action fake and Devontae Ross's speed beats you down the field. Good luck to the boundary cornerback. You're going to have to leave a safety back against Devontae Ross's speed. And what that does is it opens up running lanes. It takes a defender out of the box, because then, okay, you're going to bring a safety down to the box for Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. Good luck to that boundary corner with Devontae Ross on the outside. Penn State is going to run a lot of 2, potentially 3 running back sets. You are going to see formations that are not your traditional college football. It's going to be more classic. You're going to see 3 tight end formations. You're going to see 3 running back formations. At a minimum, you're going to see a lot of 20, 21, 22, 12 personnel. You're going to see Penn State run multiple tight end, multiple running back sets, because that's what this team is built around. So Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross are your starters. I think Caden Saunders, now that he's back healthy, people forget about him because he missed all of last season with an injury. Saunders comes back and he's looked good. He's looked solid in practice so far. He's another veteran. Penn State has 3 veterans that have played a lot of college football at their starting 3 wide receivers if and when they need to go to that formation. But it's going to be, they are going to rely on Luke Reynolds and Khalil Dinkins. They are going to rely on a top 3 offensive line. And remember, running backs can catch passes too. I don't need to explain tight end, but I think people forget that you can split Nicholas Singleton out to a wide receiver. You can do the same thing with Katron Allen. And Penn State is going to utilize Corey Smith and Quentin Martin. This conversation isn't really so much about the wide receivers. It's more about what the tight ends and the running backs can do. Penn State recruited all of these running backs and tight ends for a good reason. This is just the way that the team is built. So that is what they're going to rely on. Could they go and get a better wide receiver out of the transfer portal? Maybe. But I don't know that the opportunity is going to present itself for a couple of reasons. And I've explained this before, but happy to explain it again. One, Penn State's got to meet a roster limit. The House settlement hasn't gone into effect, but it's going to. July 1st, you need to have your roster. And then there's negotiations, or I guess that I don't know all the legal standard of this, but it's going to be 105 players, scholarship players. And the journey, the path of the walk-on is in jeopardy at this point. So Penn State has to prepare for that, meaning they have to go from presently, at the time of this recording, they're at 119 players. That is well over the scholarship limit of 105. That's well over the roster limit. It's the roster limit. It's not a scholarship issue. It's a roster issue. So they need to cut 14 players. That will most likely be the walk-ons first. But who knows if any scholarship players are going to happen to have to go into the portal in this instance as well. So before Penn State even wants to think about wide receiver, a linebacker potentially, I've seen that's a concern by other people as well. Defensive tackle is my concern. So we're going to talk about it in the upcoming segment between linebacker and defensive tackle. But before Penn State can even address those issues, they got to figure out how they're going to get to 105. And then you got to go past that 105 total. So you're going to have to you're going to have to cut 14 players to get to 105. And then how many other individuals that you want before you go back into the transfer portal. The spring transfer portal window is an interesting one. People think that some people assume that maybe it's the end all be all, that this is the last opportunity. And yes, technically it is. But the winter transfer portal window is much more important because you bring players in early to learn the playbook, to build chemistry. Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross were brought in through the winter transfer portal for a reason. That way you're not scurrying and rushing to find somebody as a replacement. I really do think Penn State is content with where it is at wide receiver. They are content. If there was a superstar in the portal, would they try to make a run? Sure. But between Kyron Hudson, Devontae Ross, the way that they're utilizing the wide receivers in this offense as well, and then the depth, there is a lot of upside potential that is waiting in the wings. Are they going to be superstars right now? Probably not. But Tyser Denmark, Peter Gonzalez, Josiah Brown, Kobe Howard, for what it's worth, Matt Outen, Lyric Samuel, I've seen them flash at these spring practices, but Penn State has its rotation pretty much set. It's going to be Kyron Hudson, Devontae Ross, Liam Clifford, Caden Saunders, Tyser Denmark, Anthony Ivy, and Kobe Howard's going to make his way into the rotation at some point, sooner rather than later. True freshman wide receiver. At some point, Peter Gonzalez will as well. Why the wide receivers struggled as much as they did last season? I mean, they did struggle. They didn't have a catch in the national semifinal game. I understand that. But this is it. It also has to do with where's the production going. And it's going to go back to the running backs. It's going to go back to the tight ends. Luke Reynolds is going to have a major impact. But I think Kyron Hudson can be better than Trey Wallace. Devontae Ross can be better than Amari Evans. That's what we're looking at. And then the depth that they didn't have a season ago. Tyser Denmark was new. Peter Gonzalez and Josiah Brown were hurt. Now they have those players. They are slowly building a depth chart at wide receiver that the younger players are only going to get better as the season progresses. So I am not as concerned. Am I buying all in? Would I put wide receivers to change the game or change an outcome for Penn State? Probably not. But let's be honest, they're not going to lean on them, so the pressure isn't there. They can perform and give Penn State what they need at this point in time. But let's go back to linebacker and defensive tackle. Linebacker is not a need in my mind. So Penn State's got to focus on defensive tackle. If they're going to make any moves in the portal, it's got to be at DT. We'll talk about it next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you will get $250 in bonus bets. That's right, $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. You'll love using FanDuel because it makes betting so easy. So whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props, and I mean player props from three-pointers to steals to assists, points, rebounds, you name it, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite players with these props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine your live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today when you place your first $5 bet and it wins. That's over at FanDuel.com with $250 in bonus bets waiting after your first $5 bet. So let's turn it over to linebacker. Look, my biggest concern is defensive tackle. I'm going to get to that in just a second, but other people seem to believe that linebacker is a glaring weakness or can't be trusted. And obviously availability, health are going to be a big part of this. But if everybody is available in this linebacker room, Penn State's in a solid spot at linebacker. And it also goes back to my point about wide receiver. If they're going to focus on running backs and the offensive line and the tight ends, and there really isn't going to be all these wide receivers on the football field at one time, it's the same thing with the linebacker spot. They're running a 4-2-5, meaning that two linebackers are on the field at one given time. Penn State's really relying on this secondary. They're really relying on the pass rush, the guys up front, which is why defensive tackle has a big circle around it for me after Zane Durant, and hopefully Alonzo Ford comes back at 100% and more. And then we've heard positive intel on Xavier Gilliam. Linebacker specifically, though, it's going to be Tony Rojas. It's going to be Keon Wiley and Dom DeLuca. That rotation, those first three linebackers in that, they're going to rotate, but all three of them can be three down linebackers. They can all cover. Even though Dom DeLuca is a little more trustworthy in run defense, his pass coverage is pretty solid. I mean, how many pick sixes has he had at this point in his Penn State career? So Dom DeLuca isn't a liability. He can be that three down linebacker if Penn State needs him to. Keon Wiley being back is the difference maker, because Wiley was already tabbed as a breakout player a season ago. Long-term injury, didn't get to play. He practiced a little bit at the end of the season, and honestly, Penn State probably could have used him in that game against Notre Dame. But he is the complete package at linebacker. He can blitz. He was supposed to be the backup. Remember him in the Rose Bowl? I know that was in garbage time, but he started to flash that potential as an off-ball linebacker. He was supposed to be that next man up in conjunction to Abdul Carter after Micah Parsons. Wiley is a really good off-ball linebacker, but hasn't had the chance to prove it because of Abdul Carter and, unfortunately, the injury circumstances. So if you want a breakout player, one that should be at the top of your list, it is Keon Wiley, because he can be that stand-up blitzer. He can be a solid run defender. He's going to be great in pass coverage. And it's the same thing with Tony Rojas. Tony Rojas and Keon Wiley, I think, will be the one and the two linebackers for the 4-2-5. And then Dom DeLuca will cycle in either at Rojas' spot or Wiley's spot. But you have those three as your starters. And then after that, Penn State has the depth that it didn't have a season ago. Losing out on Kobe King is a big deal, but it helps when you have another wave of young talent waiting to make their mark. Whether that's Anthony Specca, former 4-star linebacker, Kari Jackson, former 4-star linebacker, LeVar Arrington II, former 4-star linebacker. There are a lot of players that are going to contribute at linebacker behind those first three that I named. So linebacker's in a better spot. Is it a strength for Penn State? Maybe not necessarily, but is it a glaring weakness? Is it a problem? Does Penn State need to go into the portal to build the depth chart or go get another co-starter? I don't think so. I like the first three that they have, and then I like some of the backups that are behind them that are ready to go. And don't forget, Takari Nelson came down from that safety spot, so he adds to the linebacker depth as well. He's just an all-around football player. So whether he has those safety instincts and coverage, you get him the bulk up, you allow him to develop. Linebacker is in a pretty good spot, I must say. I'd say it's in a mid-tier. It's not an overt strength like an offensive line. It's not going to be one of the best position groups in the country. But when this team really relies on its edge defenders and its secondary, but we got to get to defensive tackles. So linebacker is not necessarily the liability. Why I continue to highlight defensive tackle is because Zane Durant or Alonzo Ford, if they happen to be unavailable, that is an issue. Because Zane Durant, I think, is all conference. Zane Durant, I think, could be All-America if he plays a full season, if he's available. And he was for these past few years. Zane Durant hasn't had any issues with injury or anything like that. Alonzo Ford has. So depth is extremely important. Now, Penn State has depth at defensive tackle. Liam Andrews, DeAndre Cook, they picked up Owen Wafel in the transfer portal, just to name a few of them. Xavier Gilliam has stepped up here in spring practice to a point where James Franklin can confidently say that's our third defensive tackle. It is obvious that Zane Durant's the one, Alonzo Ford's the two, and then Xavier Gilliam's the three. Okay, but after that, who? Who's going to step up in this case? Caleb Artis, he's been around the program for a long time. Is it his turn at this point in time? He's dealt with bumps and bruises himself. I like Liam Andrews. I like Randy Adarica. I think those two defensive tackles have the most long-term upside, but are they going to be good right now? Are they going to be solid contributors right now? They will get better over the course of the season if they are available. Randy Adarica is a true freshman, early enrollee, and he's flashed at spring practices, which is great because I think Adarica can be a solid everyday starter, maybe an all-conference player when he's at the tail end of his career for Penn State. But what about right now? So after those first three, if any one of them get banged up, you have an issue with your fourth, fifth, sixth defensive tackles. I think it is worth going into the portal and getting another co-starter type of player. That's what they were targeting originally. They were looking for somebody that could be in that two deep. Right now, Penn State doesn't have a two deep at defensive tackle. And if one of those players, one of your main players gets hurt between Durant, Ford, Gilliam, they're not in a good spot. They are not in a good spot. So they need to go get a capable contributor. If that's a one and done player, that's a grad senior, they're just 1 year left in eligibility. You would like to think a little more long-term maybe. But again, this defensive tackle group is going to go from a weakness, a question mark, to potentially a strength in 2026. But that's not what we're talking about. That is not what we're talking about here. We are talking about how this group needs to be good now when Penn State's in a national title window. And if you have an injury, that's an issue for the Nittany Lions. So linebacker, solid spot. Wide receiver, not the biggest concern here. Defensive tackle, yeah, that's the biggest concern. And it's Zane Durant and Alonzo Ford I trust. Ford gave you a lot of good reps last season, was a really solid contributor. I think he was a top 30 defensive tackle before the injury. Zane Durant was early in the season the #1 overall defensive tackle per the analytics, per Pro Football Focus. So that's what Ford and Durant can give you. Even with the confidence in Gilliam, I still need to see it. I still need to buy into it. I'm not fully sold on it. But I'll take Franklin's word for it that he stood out. But can he be a true third defensive tackle? Or is there somebody in the portal that hops in that might be better than him? It is worth exploring. It's worth looking at. But remember the obstacles that Penn State has to go through. They got to cut. Yes, they have to release 14 plus players. They got to release at least 15 before they even start thinking about defensive tackle, wide receiver, linebacker. Who knows what they want to actually address? But I think defensive tackle should be at the top of that list. Now let's go back to the offense. I think that's fair because I started to talk about it in the previous segment, but focusing on the wide receivers, Singleton, Allen, the tight ends. What is Penn State's offense going to look like? Andy Kotelniki is going to get pretty creative. Let's get a glimpse into that coming up next here on the podcast. Penn State's offense is going to look different. It's going to be different because it has to be. It's the personnel. It's why Singleton and Allen came back. They have a two-headed monster at running back. They have one of the best offensive lines in the country. They're going to use it. Drew Aller also came back. So you have reliable options at quarterback, running back, and then the tight end spot too. Luke Reynolds is not going to be Tyler Warren 2.0 right now. Right now. I'll hold out for his true junior season, but he is a rising sophomore and he's a rising star. I think he is right. He is ready to go as a breakout player. He's going to be utilized in the offense. Khalil Dinkins should not be forgotten about. I don't even think Joey Schlaffer should be. Penn State is going to utilize all of its tight ends. There is a reason they recruited 3 tight ends in this class of 2025, but it's also because that's what they plan to do. Is they're going to use 2 tight end, 3 tight end sets pretty frequently. There's going to be a lot of trickery. It goes back to, what does Kyron Hudson give you in terms of a specialty skill? What does Devontae Ross give you in terms of a specialty skill? Those guys, their individual skill sets complement what Penn State wants to do. You can throw passes to running backs. You can line them up out wide. You can go spread formation. It's just not going to be in the form of 4 or 5 wide receivers like a USC. It's going to look like you have Drew Aller out of shotgun, Katron Allen to his left, Nicholas Singleton to his right, and then you have 1 tight end or 2 tight ends. Maybe that's Luke Reynolds and Khalil Dinkins. Maybe it's Schlaffer. Maybe it's Andrew Rapplier when he's back. And then you have Devontae Ross and Kyron Hudson on the outside. So Penn State is going to rotate it to where, okay, one moment you're going to have 1 wide receiver. Another moment you're going to have 2 or 3 wide receivers, but then you're going to have 2 running backs. You're going to have 2 tight ends. Penn State can go no huddle. They can really catch a defense on its heels, because put Nicholas Singleton in the slot, motion him in the slot. So you have Katron Allen right to the left. You have Katron Allen to the left. You have Nicholas Singleton to the right. You motion Singleton out into the slot, and then you match him up with the linebacker. Who's keeping up with Nicholas Singleton on an island one-on-one like that, on a quick slant? Singleton has progressively been getting better, more reliable as a receiver, so that's just one element. It's also Quentin Martin. It's also Corey Smith. Those guys were, they were talked about. They were praised for their receiving ability, that, hey, these guys could be wide receivers, but I want to keep them in the running back room. Which is what James Franklin said. They are good running backs, but they are running backs that can catch. So imagine these different formations where you very well might have, and we saw glimpses of it a season ago. We did. In that game against West Virginia, it wasn't until Cam Wallace got hurt that everything changed. But Penn State was using, on the football field all at once, Singleton, Allen, Wallace, in this 3 running backfield. And Allen and Wallace are bulkier running backs, so they can be lead. And so is Singleton, for what it's worth. Singleton isn't just this speedster running back. He is an all-purpose, truly an all-purpose running back. He's actually the biggest of the running backs, weighing in at around 225. I think he's 226, 227 officially. But that's, all 3 of them are these speed combo power running backs. And you can use the 2 of them as lead blockers. You can throw passes to them. So Andy Kotelniki is the right guy to run this offense, because he is going to get extremely creative. He is going to use Singleton, Allen, Quentin Martin, Corey Smith. He's going to line them up in the slot. He's going to have Khalil Dinkins, Luke Reynolds, Joey Schlaffer, Andrew Rapplier, maybe one of the freshmen makes it into the lineup as a rotational player as well. There's just a lot of tight ends. So it's going to be heavy lifting for the likes of an Andrew Olish, right, to leave a mark in his first season as a true freshman. But Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross and Tyser Denmark and Caden Saunders and Liam Clifford. So there's just going to be this rotation, but it's primarily going to be focused on running 12 personnel, 21 personnel, 22 personnel, heck, 23 personnel, where you're going to have 2 running backs, 3 tight ends in a formation, and those guys can catch. Luke Reynolds is a receiving tight end. Khalil Dinkins is a receiving tight end. We don't know much about Joey Schlaffer, but he was a 4-star prospect for a reason. He was a top 10 tight end in the country for a reason. So don't necessarily forget about him. But Penn State's going to play to its strengths. You can run play action off of it. If you have 2 NFL caliber running backs, you're going to use 3 in the backfield. Okay, Penn State's most likely going to run the ball here, right? They're lined up in a power formation. Oh, but Devontae Ross is on the outside. Play action fake to Nicholas Singleton. Devontae Ross is in one-on-one coverage down the field, and Drew Aller's able to hit him. So that's what this Penn State offense is going to be built around. That's what it's going to look like. That's why I don't have wide receiver as a need in the transfer portal. Focus on defensive tackle, linebackers in a pretty decent spot as well. But when this offense is not built around wide receiver, you focus on, and like I said, running backs can give you good reps as pass catchers. The tight ends are all receiving tight ends. They're not just extra offensive linemen. They're not just extra bodies. Luke Reynolds is a receiving tight end. We've seen that. Khalil Dinkins, kind of forgotten about in the shuffle, but is also a receiving tight end. Schlaffer's that. Andrew Rapplier's that. They're basically receiving tight ends that can block. They can block. And it's that element of surprise. It's that element of deception when Penn State comes out in this power formation where the play action can be so deadly, and where the tight ends in one-on-one coverage, where the running backs in one-on-one coverage, or Devontae Ross, it's the creativity of Andy Kotelniki that really makes this work altogether, because you have all these specialty players with a little bit of deception can create some good plays, can create some great plays that most teams are not going to be ready for. Andy Kotelniki is the perfect offensive coordinator to craft all of this together. So we'll see what the transfer portal holds, right? This is it. We'll react to the news accordingly here. But at least for the time being, I'm not expecting much for Penn State in the transfer portal here, given the roster limits, given where Penn State is with its numbers and what they have to get to overall, and just frankly, the way that the team is built. The way that the team is built, they knew this was coming. This didn't surprise them by any means. This was the team that they had built. They went and got these guys in the winter transfer portal window. So if they can get a defensive tackle, that's the only thing that they need at this point. Otherwise, the team is what it is. And I like where it stands going into next season. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Remember, if you got a question that you want me to answer for a future podcast, let me know. But otherwise, share your thoughts down in the comments section. Please leave a like on the show, share it with friends and family. Thank you so much for the support on this channel. If you are new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around all of your favorite Penn State sports teams.